Europe did not keep its promise. For a growing number of Europeans, the EU has become a synonym for failure, whether on the migration crisis, the economy and security. To discuss these issues, I'm joined by the President of the European Parliament, Martin Schulz, here in Strasbourg. President Schulz, thanks for being with us on the Global Conversation.
My pleasure.
In this interview, I'll ask you to speak frankly about the state of Europe because we're all worried. And it seems when we're looking at Europe, it's as if we're watching a slow and painful suicide. Are we reaching the point of no return?
Your description is absolutely right. The European Union's in a dismal state. Forces on the extremes are winning elections and referendums. If we throw into question the essence of the European project, we're playing with the fate of the next generation, because the 21st century is one of global cooperation and competition between entire regions, not between small countries like mine, Germany. What's a population of 80 million compared to 1.4 billion in China? How can we survive alone in the 21st century?
Mon pays, l'Allemagne, 80 millions d'habitants, mais par rapport à la Chine, 1,4 milliard.
Those who claim that we should bring down Europe and renationalize are playing with the security and the future of an entire generation.
Il faut mettre fin à l'Europe et renationaliser joue avec la sécurité et le futur de toute une génération.
Talking about the European project and integration, one of the hot topics these days is, of course, Brexit. Do you think it's really possible that Britain will decide to leave the EU?
It's indeed possible. Opinion polls show both camps are neck and neck, so I hope it won't happen. But it's not out of the question. But a Brexit would be a disaster, both for the European Union and for Britain.
After all, some say Britain doesn't play by the EU's rules and doesn't want more integration. Why do you want Britain in the bloc?
C'est un pays G7.
Well, it's a G7 country, a permanent member of the UN Security Council with veto power. It's the second biggest economy in the EU single market. We need Britain.
La Grande-Bretagne, nous en avons besoin.
So we should make do?
Oui. La Grande-Bretagne à l'autre côté doit
Well, yes, Britain, for its part, must understand it's a G7 country because it's Europe's second economy. And it's the second economy because it's fully part of the single market. So breaking up from that means reducing Britain's significance, its influence and its economic power.
So you'd agree to even more concessions for Britain?
No. We've negotiated a package on which the British people will now be voting, so when you hear some people say, let's vote no to get a better deal, that's just not going to happen. We already have a deal. It's now up to the British people to say yes or no.
We've asked our internet followers to send us some questions, and we have one from Armin. If Britain votes to leave the EU, what will be the most crucial challenge to overcome?
I think the Eurozone must react right away. We have in the Eurozone 19 member states, a single currency, but we have 19 different economic policies, labour policies, tax policies. We need to put some order into the Eurozone, so whether Britain leaves or stays, I think the Eurozone must cooperate more closely on policy.
So you're set to deal with the Brexit?
Unfortunately, no. I think one of the problems of the Eurozone is this macroeconomic imbalance. In our jargon, that means very uneven development within the Eurozone. We must fix that, whether Britain stays or leaves. But I think if it left, that would force the other member states to realise now is the time to act. And in any case, after June the 23rd, we'll need to discuss the future structure of the European Union.
Il faut qu'on discute sur la future structure de l'Union européenne.
Could there be an amicable divorce?
Le divorce
Divorce is always very difficult. I think it's too early to speculate on what may happen after June the 23rd. What I wish is that we don't talk about that, and that we manage to convince most British people to vote to stay. Because it's a win-win situation, whereas a Brexit would cause everybody to lose.
Situation. Sortir, c'est une situation où tout le monde va perdre.
Let's move from Brexit to Grexit. Greece is constantly making headlines these days. Do you think the new sacrifices that creditors are calling for from Greece will be enough to lift the country out of the crisis and keep it in the Eurozone?
Seront-ils suffisants pour sortir la Grèce de sa crise et la garder dans l'Union européenne?
Trois réponses très brèves. Premièrement,
three very short answers. First of all, Monday we found what I think is a good way to solve the current problems. Secondly, I think we need debt relief, and it's the first time we've discussed that.
That went against the Commission and Germany.
No, the Commission is not reluctant to discuss this. And even Germany is open to debate. I belong to a party that's a member of the German government. We totally support such a debate, and the German finance minister has not opposed it. Thirdly, we need to stop with this idea that we could demand more sacrifices. We can no longer cut wages and pensions. What we need is recognition that Greece in 2015 has reached a primary budget surplus. That means that the sacrifices we demanded from the Greeks are now bearing fruit.
You think austerity measures on Greece went too far?
You know certainly very well that I've never been a supporter of these austerity measures. Cleaning up a budget, rearranging sovereign debt is necessary, but if you don't have economic growth or employment to raise national income, you're never going to fix a budget in the long run.
Just as Greece is fighting to save its economy, it's also on the front line when it comes to the refugee crisis. I'd like now to talk about the deal struck between the EU and Turkey. And on that, we have a question from Nico Kulik. It's quite specific. What will you sacrifice in order to have the deal with Turkey? Will you close your eyes on the violations of human rights or push Turkey to start to obey them, even if the price is the deal failing?
Ce que j'ai fait la semaine dernière, c'était j'ai arrêté.
Well, of course, what I did last week is that I stopped the plan for visa-free travel that the Commission put to the Parliament because Turkey had in no way met the 72 criteria demanded in exchange. Among them is a reform of anti-terror legislation, a reform of data protection, and just as this man mentions, if Turkey continues on this path and says it won't reform anti-terror laws, then we won't begin these discussions on visa-free travel.
So what do you think of President Erdogan when he tells you, we'll go our way and you'll go your way? Is he a reliable partner in the long run? You need his help after all, don't you?
We are partners who need mutual cooperation. I cannot imagine that Mr. Erdogan would want to give up on this cooperation. We are ready to cooperate, but Turkey has promised to carry out reforms so that we can get started with our share of the deal.
You're waiting some concrete results.
Despite having made promises, Turkey is now backtracking. This is a new situation, so we need to discuss it. But if Turkey doesn't introduce these reforms, then we at the European Parliament cannot pass the deal. If Mr. Erdogan considers the deal is suspended, which I don't think is the case, because that would be a shame, we'll find a solution in the spirit of mutual respect and mutual cooperation. But mutual respect, I want to be very clear about that. means that we respect Turkey, but also that Turkey must respect our rules.
Mais il faut aussi que la Turquie respecte nos règles.
Is Europe true to its principles on human rights, given the way Turkey deals with refugees?
Travaille avec la Turquie parce qu'il y a aussi la façon dont elle traite les réfugiés.
Nous critiquons là où nous croyons que
We
la
speak
Turquie
out when we believe
ne
that Turkey is not respecting international law. But there's also something we need to be very clear about. That's why I'm answering your question. I've been in Turkey. I visited several refugee camps in Turkey. And frankly, I wish that in some of our own EU member states, refugees could be treated as they are here in Turkey.
En Europe, dans les États membres de l'Union européenne, dans quelques-uns parmi ces États membres, les réfugiés étaient traités comme en Turquie.
So that's a criticism that's totally uncalled for. In its refugee camps, Turkey is doing its utmost to help refugees.
Maximum pour accompagner les réfugiés.
But one of the consequences of this refugee crisis is that we see fences popping up everywhere around Europe to stop the influx. Is this now to be a part of our European landscape? What can be done about these fences?
On a besoin de protection de nos frontières extérieures.
We need to protect our external borders under applicable rules, while treating each case individually. And then we need a system to relocate refugees within the 28 member states.
But in the present situation...
Wait, that's absolutely not the current situation. If you have 1 million refugees and you distribute them among 28 states with a total population of 500 million, you have no problem.
That was the plan A, which didn't work.
Well, that's because most member states are not doing their part in relocating. Only a few countries are, such as Germany, Greece and Italy. And that creates problems. So the issue is not Europe, the issue is nationalism on the part of some governments. And going back to your first question, that's exactly what leads Europe into crisis, when some governments don't do their part in relocating refugees.
La crise est que quelques gouvernements qui ne participent pas à la relocalisation.
They create these problems with their nationalistic stance, and then they say Europe is incapable of resolving this migration crisis. It's a show of cynicism that is unprecedented.
So I want to come back to my first question about fences. Are they going to remain for the time being, given that you don't have a solution to the migration crisis?
That's a fair question. There is indeed clearly a majority, at least half the member states, that say it's a German problem, we have nothing to do with that. That's shameful, because the price is not paid by you or me, it's paid by the refugees.
So we've discussed Euroscepticism, we've discussed the European landscape. This is all something you're going to have to deal with. You now have to work with the Eurosceptics because they're part of the mainstream political landscape. How do you want to work with them?
Well, I wouldn't say mainstream.
They've left the margins and now they really are part of the picture.
But it's not Europe's habit to be xenophobic, racist and anti-European.
Is it becoming so?
They're very loud, they make a lot of noise, but they certainly don't represent the majority. In the European Parliament, you have 650 MEPs. Let me repeat that figure. 650 who are pro-European. That means the overwhelming majority is pro-European, and I fight with all my strength the idea that just because you make the most noise, you can be considered a majority.
Sont pris comme la majorité.
There are also Eurosceptic parties winning elections in Europe.
No, they're not winning elections.
Are you worried about their success?
We must not turn these electoral scores into a majority. It's worrisome that they have such a high number of voters, but if we bow to those who make the most noise, and if the silent majority doesn't wake up, then you're right. They will get their way and govern.
Ne se mobilisent pas. Là, vous avez raison, ils vont finalement arriver où ils veulent, gouverner les pays. Donc, ma stratégie.
So my strategy is first to say you're not the majority, and secondly, let's mobilize the majority against them.
All these crises are linked. Doesn't homegrown terrorism, where you have people turning against their fellow citizens, illustrate one of Europe's biggest failures?
Why is it a failure of Europe?
Because these are Europeans turning against their fellow citizens.
I don't think it's against you or against me. It's against a system. It's against a lifestyle. Europe is not responsible for the suburbs of Paris. The EU did not create Molenbeek. Perhaps these people have turned against the European way of life. By the way, Marine Le Pen does the same. She rejects the European model. It's not just those people who are against Europe. We can't say that everything that works in Europe is down to national governments and what doesn't work is down to Brussels. This is not a failure of the European Union, but rather an attack against European society. There I share your opinion. But again, this European society is being attacked on various fronts.
We just celebrated Europe Day. It's become a joke for some. George Cozy asks this question: why are you guys doing such a poor job of popularizing all the good things about the EU?
I don't understand this question. I work from morning to night to send a constructive message on Europe.
Why is your message not heard?
I don't know. I can't answer. It's a question I find unfair because I think my message, my feelings, are well known.
So why are your arguments not heard?
Again, I can't answer that question because I think it doesn't go to the core of the problem. The heart of the problem is that the European Union is not a federal state where the Commission is a federal government, with me the president of a federal parliament. We're an association, a union of sovereign states with national governments, and the national governments, whether in France, in Britain especially, Germany or Italy, always have the same strategy. When it's a success, they say it's theirs. When it's a failure, they say it's Europe's. Just like you did with your previous question about Europe's failure. That's one of our biggest hurdles when it comes to sending a positive message. For the past 20 years, you've seen success be nationalized, confiscated by the member states, and failure blamed on Europe. And that's maybe why I get asked this question.
Moving to our last question, we've discussed the future of Europe. Now to your future. Your mandate is scheduled to end in 2017, coincidentally the year when federal elections are held in Germany. And we have a question from a member of our audience, Friedel Koch.
Who?
Friedel Koch, you know him?
Vous le connaissez?
No.
Well, he asks, are you ready to become the next German Chancellor? And I have asked you to speak frankly.
First of all, I owe you a compliment because I've rarely heard a non-German speaker pronounce Koch so well, because it's difficult. So, I'm elected until January 2017, speculating about something that will start in autumn of that year.
That's not that far off.
Frankly, to answer your question, and we're speaking very openly here, it's my style, about Europe's serious problems. I'm the president of a European institution whose duty is to save this project, which is unique in the history of our continent. My place is here, to save this project.
Unique dans l'histoire de notre continent. Ma place est là pour sauver ce projet.
For now, so you're not saying no.
Écoutez, dans la vie politique,
listen, as a journalist, you know this. A week is a long time in politics. Who can predict anything? I belong here. I've worked my entire political life in European politics.
J'ai travaillé toute ma vie politique dans la politique européenne.
Monsieur le Président, merci beaucoup d'avoir été avec nous.
Merci à vous.
Merci.
Okay.